Now we're going to talk about slander and libel, which both come under the general category of defamation, defaming someone, telling a lie about them that makes them look bad. And when we do this in the live class, I tell them the same thing I'm going to tell you right now. If you haven't been in college very long, or you haven't been very successful in college so far, be on the lookout, no matter what subject it is that you're studying, be on the lookout for areas of the material that are similar to defamation, because these are the kinds of areas that are a prime choice for instructors to test people on. This is really good testing material. Why? Because within the general area of defamation, there are a number of different distinctions that have to be made, and it's like layers of distinctions that have to be made. And if you get the first layer, then you're probably a C student, but if you get the second layer, then maybe you're a B student, and if you get all 3 or 4 layers, then maybe you're an A student. And so this is a good way for instructors to sort out the A students from the B students from the C students. And so an area of the law where there are a number of different distinctions to be made, that's great test material. Whenever you get to an area of study that it has a number of distinctions to be made like that, pay close attention, because chances are you're going to see that on your college exam. So now we're going to talk about defamation, and the first distinction that separates the C students from the D students is the difference between libel and slander. And the distinctions are pretty simple. Libel must be in writing, and slander is spoken verbally. Historically, only the upper classes knew how to read and write, and so a lie that was told about someone in writing was regarded as more serious than a lie that was told verbally, which is like neighborhood gossip. So why do we care? Why do we make a distinction between libel and slander? Well, in most jurisdictions, if the lie that is told about you is written, then when you sue in a lawsuit, you must prove that a lie was told. You must prove that the lie was published, which doesn't mean it was written in a newspaper or something. It just means a third party heard it. Because you and I could be in an argument, and if there's nobody there, I could say all kinds of horrible things about you, but it's not published until a third person walks in the room and hears it. Then it's a libel or a slander. But a libel is written, and maybe let's back into this. With a slander, which is verbal, if I sue you for slander, all I have to prove is that a lie was told, and that it was, this is not a good way to go. All right, start over. Why does it matter whether we're talking about a libel, which is written, or a slander, which is verbal? Well, because if it's slander, you've got to prove a number of different things. You've got to prove that a lie was told about you. You've got to prove that it was published, which just means some third person heard the lie. And you've got to prove that as a result of the lie being told about you, you had some kind of actual monetary loss. So you lost a contract, or you lost a job, or you were fined or penalized somehow. If you cannot prove that you had actual monetary loss, then when you sue for slander, you cannot win the case. You will lose. But with a libel case, the lie is written. It's not just verbally spoken. And in a libel case, all you have to prove is a lie was told about you, and that the lie was published, meaning a third party read it somewhere. And you don't have to prove actual money loss in order to win the suit. So that's a big difference in terms of how difficult it is to prove and win your lawsuit. So that's why the difference between libel, which is written, and slander, which is spoken, is a big deal in the law. So the second distinction in libel and slander is, on slander you got to prove actual money loss to win the lawsuit, and libel you don't have to prove that. Now, we're still not done with distinctions in libel and slander, because within slander there's 2 different kinds of slander. There's ordinary slander, where you must prove actual money damages in order to win. But there's also a special kind of slander there are certain types of lies that we tell about people that are regarded as so awful that if you tell one of those types of lies, it is classified as what's called slander per se. And in a slander per se case, you don't have to prove actual money damages to win the lawsuit. You can win the lawsuit without proving actual money damages because the lie that was told about you is considered so awful that some form of damages are presumed. So what kind of lies constitute slander per se? Well, a lie that you have some kind of loathsome communicable disease, like maybe HIV or an STD, or maybe the pandemic COVID-19 now, who knows. So that's a lie that's slander per se. A lie that you did something wrong in your profession or your occupation. Another one is a lie that you committed some kind of serious crime. You were convicted of a crime or you went to jail for a crime. And the fourth kind of slander per se is unchaste behavior by a woman. So a couple of things about that. Guys, when you're in the locker room as young guys and you're bragging about your last sexual conquest, if it's not true, you better not be talking about a real woman. You better be talking about your imaginary girlfriend in Canada, because if the real woman finds out you're telling lies about her unchaste behavior, she can sue you, and it'll be slander per se, and she'll win that lawsuit. But the second thing about this unchaste behavior by a woman thing constituting slander per se is I get questions now, well, how come that's not the same for men? We may change that eventually, but right now it's a cultural thing. If a woman sleeps with a lot of different men, they call her a tramp. But if a man sleeps with a whole lot of different women, they call him a stud. It's a cultural thing. Maybe that will change. Okay, the last thing that we need to talk about with regard to slander is the defenses. What are the defenses to slander? Well, the three things that are categorized as defenses to a lawsuit for slander. One is the truth. The truth is an absolute defense. If what you're telling is the truth, you cannot be successfully sued for slander. The second thing is privileged communications. There are certain times when we speak that the law protects us no matter what we say. And that is when we are subpoenaed to testify at a trial or to testify at some form of government hearing. When you're testifying as a witness at a trial or a government hearing, we do not want you to be so afraid of being sued for slander that you don't tell everything that you know. We want you to tell the truth and tell everything that you know when you're testifying at a trial or government hearing. And because of that, we have a law that says whatever you say as a witness at a trial or at a government hearing, even if it turns out to be completely false, you cannot be sued for slander or libel for that. It is protected communications. It's called privileged communications, and you're completely shielded from what you say as a witness at a trial or a hearing. Now be careful, because if you go outside and you say the same thing out on the courthouse steps to a news reporter, you're not protected for that speech. You're only protected for the speech in the courtroom or the hearing room. And the third thing, which is classified as a defense to a libel or slander lawsuit, is not really a defense. It's the public figure's extra requirement. So here's the thing. If you are a politician or a movie star, some form of a celebrity, you have a great deal of influence in public discussion and politics and that kind of stuff. And so in a democratic society, we do not want people to be afraid to criticize public figures because they're afraid they might get sued for slander. So we say if you are a public figure and someone slanders you, you can still sue them for slander or libel, but you have a little bit tougher time proving and winning your case because you have one additional proof thing that you have to prove. So if I'm a movie star and I'm suing someone for slander, I have to prove not only that a lie was told and that the lie was published, and I may or may not have to prove that I actually had actual monetary losses, but I have to prove this fourth thing, which is I have to prove that the lie that was told with malice. Now, malice in the law of slander and libel doesn't mean told with a bad attitude. It means either I knew that what I was saying was false and I told it anyway, or I had reckless disregard for the truth. I had a way to check to see if it was true before I published it, and I didn't bother to check to see if it was true or not. I just went ahead and told it with reckless disregard for the truth. That is malice, and if you're a movie star or a politician, some famous person, then you have a little bit tougher time proving and winning a lawsuit. Final note about public figures. I almost always get a question about, well, you know, how come movie stars, they let people like the National Enquirer publish those incredibly trashy stories about them that you see on the newspaper rack at the grocery store checkout counter. Stuff like Tom Cruise had a baby with an alien. Everyone knows that's got to be false, but it's in big headlines on the front page of the paper, and there's splashed a big picture of Tom Cruise. How come they don't get sued for that stuff? Well, sometimes they do get sued by movie stars. A famous movie star by the name of Carol Channing sued him one time over that stuff, and she got a big damage award. But the reason why the National Enquirer and other scandal rags get away with that stuff all the time and the movie stars don't sue them is not because of the public figure malice proof requirement. It's mostly because when you're famous, your money, fame is your money, and every 15 seconds of fame you get more money for things like advertising endorsements. And so what the saying is in the PR world, the public relations world, is any ink is good ink for a movie star. Even if they're writing terrible things about you, as long as they're putting your name and your face on the front page of every scandal rag at every grocery store in the country, that's good for you. So that's the real reason why more movie stars don't sue when people are saying ridiculous things about them. Part of the high price of being famous, I guess.